Someone had to say it. Welcome back to Someone Had to Say It. On today's episode, Heidi and I spoke with author Jennifer Wilck. She has written over 15 books, and we just love talking to her. Not only did we talk about her books, her upcoming matchmaking book that I consulted with her on, but also about prioritizing writing, how to be productive with kids and a partner, which is not always easy, and managing expectations, how we're getting old, forgetting things, needing to put everything down on the calendar, antisemitism, and so much more. Please enjoy this episode. You can order her books and everything on her website. Please see the show notes for everything. Enjoy. Welcome back, everyone, to Someone Had to Say It. We took a little break. I was traveling all over Hawaii visiting my son, and I'm back. That was a whole other story, but we have with us a very special guest today that we've been waiting so long to talk to, Jennifer Wilck. She is an author of multiple books that we'll talk about everything. She has a book that just came out. She has another one coming out in January, February. There's a lot to talk about. Books, everything else, life, kids. And we were just right before we started recording, we were talking about languages, being bilingual, speaking, not speaking. And Jennifer mentioned that she was studying French in college. So, with that weird introduction, welcome to the podcast. And I don't know, we started talking about languages, but welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It's so nice to have you, Jennifer. I mean, I am in such admiration of you. How many books have you written, first of all?
I think at this point we're around, I want to say somewhere between 15 and 17.
That's amazing. So is that like twice a year, once a year? How often are you putting out books?
It varies based on what my schedule is, what my contracts are. Some of those were books that I got my rights back to from like a smaller publisher, and then I wanted to republish them, and I wanted to do a rapid release, like one right after the other. So it really varies. In general, I seem to be doing about 2 books a year.
Wow.
Which is manageable for me. Last year, I think I had 7, and that was insane, and I don't recommend that for anybody. I highly no, don't do that.
I can barely manage 1.
I have a hard enough time with like the 1 or the 2, and for whatever reason, it just happened, and I hate saying no. Like, I'm always like, if I say no, somebody is never going to ask me to do something ever again. So I want to be like super easy and super whatever. And so people come to me, do you want to do this? Can you do this? I'm like, of course I can. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do?
And this is all Harlequin coming to?
Some of them were Harlequin, some of them were re-releases, and it just worked out that way, and it was a mess. And
It's a lot. I have a hard time saying no to everything too, but I've learned that for your own sake, mental health and
absolutely
health, you have to, but thank you for sending me your books. I have the Deadlines, Donuts, and Dreidels in the perfect match. And you know me being a matchmaker.
Yes.
I'm always excited about matchmaking books. But it was interesting that you were saying you majored in French, and
I was a double major in English and French.
English and French,
right?
Yeah. So you were telling us an interesting story, and I told you to wait till we start recording because your stories are always funny.
Okay, so just to backtrack, I was an English major because I was looking at anything that did not require any math, and so I'm not a math person at all. So I was an English major, but I had been taking French in school since like 7th grade, I think. And when I got to college, I was like 2 classes away from a major just without even trying. And so I was like, all right, well, let's just add that in because it's easy. But I do really like languages. And so what I had been saying before we started recording was that I decided I had wanted to learn Russian. So
That's
Well, I just thought
not.
it was such an interesting thing. I was like, okay, sure, let's try it. So I went to, I took the introduction because I knew zero Russian whatsoever. And the teaching assistant who taught the class started out by telling us we weren't allowed to ask any questions.
What?
So he was trying to teach us things, and he was Russian.
Mm.
And I didn't fully understand what he was saying or what he was trying to get across, like some of the grammar, but I wasn't allowed to ask any questions.
Maybe
So
that's a Russian culture thing. Is that true, Julie?
Totally. Totally.
I don't know, but I was like, how can I
Oh
possibly
my
learn
God.
this if I can't ask you anything? So
Oh.
it went no further than that one semester. I don't remember anything. It was a failure, but I
Yeah.
tried.
So
It's
what was your grade, if I may ask? Like, do you remember that?
It was probably a B. I mean, there
That's
was,
not bad.
there were like other
yeah.
people in class, and we all were like, how do we do this? So we all kind of helped each other. And I think it
Yeah.
was fine, but
But that's crazy. I can't, I mean, I wish I would have said that to my son when he was, my youngest decided over COVID. There's a lot of free time. You're alone a lot
great.
because there's no going to school, there's no sports, there's nothing. And he's like, I'm going to teach myself Russian because mom was so bad at teaching us. And I was, but my husband doesn't speak it, so it was always like Russian English, Russian English. And I was like, screw it, like I can't do this. It's just too hard, especially
Right.
when they're little. I did try, and when I was alone with them, I always spoke with them in Russian. But then when my husband would get home, or I would get home, or whatever, it was too hard. So he started teaching himself, and he did a great job. He's one of those people that picks up languages really
Mhm.
easy. So he did it with Russian, Japanese, like he picked up
Oh, wow.
Korean. Yeah, a lot of
Those
Asian
are
languages.
hard languages. Wow.
It came so easy to him, but my oldest had a really hard time. So they would always ask me, okay, well, why is it when you say this with a girl about this with a boy and this and the grammar and the ending? I was like, I don't know. Just say it. And that was the thing. Don't ask me any questions. This is just how it is. But he was like, but I'm trying to understand why. There's got to be a
Right.
reason why.
Right.
There's always in every language, right? And I don't know the words, I don't know I still have a hard time figuring out noun from a verb, from an adjective, in English, right? And in Russian, I don't remember what they're called, right? He's like, well, this is called an adjunction to the past, present, future. I'm like, you know what? You go find a teacher, not a native, because when you ask a native questions, honestly, we can't answer it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But your TA was a teacher, so
Right.
he should know.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, but it's the same with English. Like I use grammar, but I don't necessarily know why I'm using it.
Right.
I can recognize when it's correct or isn't correct,
Mm.
but I can't necessarily define the crazy past participle, whatever of something. I'm like,
Right.
I don't know. It's just that this is how you say it. So I understand the concept. But like you said, he is a teaching assistant. He is supposed to help us. It was a little crazy. So
But it's
Right.
weird. It seems like English is one of the unique languages where there aren't pronouns involved as much. Is that
right.
true?
Well, I don't think there's really as much connection between like the pronoun and the
And the verbs, I
noun,
think.
right? And the
Oh,
noun.
on the
So like
like I know in Hebrew, it's like you use the verbs based on the gender.
correct.
Right.
And in English, I think you don't use like in other languages, like in French, there are certain nouns that are feminine and there are certain
Mhm.
nouns that are masculine, and
Right.
you use the article based on that or the pronoun or something. So you don't have that in English. We have a lot of other crazy things, like the I before E, except after the million different things.
Yeah.
Is it like that in Japanese? I'm curious. I don't know. Is
I
there
don't
any
know, but I think there is, because we just came back from Hawaii and we were on the Big Island for a while, and then we went to Oahu, because there's another school and he's considering transferring to the school in Oahu. He didn't like it. He's went back to the Big Island. But the point is, there's a lot of Japanese tourists, and everywhere we went, stores, and he was so excited to practice Japanese. And that was one of the things he said, the feminine to the masculine. He was kind of confused, but it's not quite the same like it is in other languages. And in Russian, especially, it was hard for me learning English because I'd be like, okay, well, you say she goes, but then how do you say he goes? They were like, he goes. There's no ending for him. Like in Russian, is feminine. So like when you say she's going, it ends on an If it's a boy, a male, then it ends on a consonant or I can't even explain it. So I was very confused. I'm like, what do you mean? Female, like dog, cat? Because we have a cat is a boy, a dog is a girl in Russia. And here, like, it's just a dog and it's just a cat. It's an it. Well, what do you mean it's an it? And now with all these labels too, pronouns that people use too, I am very confused. And I tell people right away, I know you say your pronouns are them, they, that's a whole other conversation, but I don't understand it. So I'm just going to call you by your name. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. Because it's adding an extra layer to someone who's foreign, right? Like when it's not your language. So I can't imagine what foreigners have to go through now with all the pronouns and everything. And, it's not he, him, it's now they, them. Wait, what? But I was told that in English, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you do have to make a break from the grammar focus on pronouns to the person. And that can be very hard to wrap your head around if you're thinking about it from a language standpoint.
Right.
I have so many questions for Jennifer about, so you have a new book coming out, right?
Yes.
About a rabbi as the main character.
Yes.
So I have so many questions about this, such as, did October 7th happen to influence this decision? Did you always have Jewish characters from the beginning of your writing career? That sort of thing. Tell us about that.
It's so interesting you're asking me that question because I am in the middle of reading on being Jewish now, and I read your piece and I loved it. And it's so interesting to read all of these the same topic from so many different perspectives. So I love that question. I started writing Jewish characters much earlier than October 7th. I started out writing non-Jewish characters, just I don't even know what we call it, just mainstream romance, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to have characters that were like me, that I could relate to, even if they weren't exactly, I'm not recreating me on the page, but I wanted to be able to relate to them in some way. And I always got so excited when I would read a book with Jewish characters in them. And my husband and I were listening to, at the time, books on tape. We're old. It was a long time ago. We were in the car on a road trip and we were listening to Faye Kellerman, her Peter Decker series, because he likes reading sci-fi. I like reading romance. And so we compromised on a mystery. And
I love that.
And it was the Peter Decker series. And I loved the way she made the Jewish characters just a part of the story. Like it was just there. It wasn't like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It was just perfectly natural. And I loved it. And I was like, if she can do that with mystery, I want to do something like that, obviously different, with romance. And so I started writing Jewish characters. And that was probably around 2014, 2015. And then, so I was writing.
I'm sorry, but I think you must be like one of the first people ever. In my head, it's always Jean Meltzer because that was the first one I read. But I feel like you're kind of the predecessor, or you're the one who, right? I can't think of anybody else who first started writing romance with Jewish characters.
It wasn't very popular when I was writing it. There were a lot of publishers who were like, we just don't know what to do with this. I know,
like we're aliens, right?
Like I had an agent at the time and she was just like, I'm not really sure how to market this. I'm like, however you would market any other book.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. So it was a little hard. And then I was at a conference with another writer friend of mine, and Own Voices was coming into being around like 2017. And I was like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, because own voices seem to be with, like Black authors. So I was like, I don't know, can I use that? And so she's like, well, she had an agent at the time and I did not. And she's like, let me ask my agent. And her agent came back to her and said, if basically if you are a targeted minority, you can use own voices. So I started very carefully, like not trying to invade anybody's space, but saying, I write Jewish romance. I am Jewish, so therefore I'm using own voices, and I was very careful about it.
Wait, can you just tell our listeners what own voices is? For those that don't know, what does that mean?
So it's a hashtag, a way of referring to books and authors who are writing characters that are of a similar background to themselves.
Right.
So
and are
an
minorities, I guess, typically, right?
Right, typically. So an author of color writing about characters who are of their same race or culture. So I'm Jewish and I write Jewish characters. I would use own voices to categorize it as one way of letting people know.
But don't you think just even having to ask was such a just such a false narrative, right? That we have to ask, hey, can I be myself here? Hey, can I write about my people? Hey, what, you know what I'm saying?
Like, it was a little uncomfortable, and it's even uncomfortable using own voices because I feel like, why do I need to say that why do I need to say that this is who I am? I don't mind saying who I am, but I don't know that I always want to preface everything by starting that way. It sort of depends. After October 7th, I've been a lot louder in identifying myself. I've been a lot more proud to say this is who I am. Yes, I have concerns about, okay, what's the reaction going to be and what space am I in? And is it safe here? Is it not safe here? But I really feel strongly that I want to write authentic characters. I want to write Jewish characters who resonate with people. They're not going to resonate with everybody because within Judaism, we have a lot of different people. We're not
and
all.
I love that. I absolutely
and I love that too. And I'm totally fine with, it not being exactly the same as everybody else. But we do have enough in common that we can say, oh, okay, I recognize this, or, oh, I see myself on that page, or, oh, I see I'm sort of like that. That's kind of like me, but I'm a little different and I do it this way.
Yeah. I absolutely adore that. And I so identify with everything you just said. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. I used to wonder if I had been alive during the Holocaust, would I have been somebody who tried to hide my Judaism and my identity? Like, on one hand, I probably would have, just to save my family. But on the other hand, I don't know, I have a bit of a temper. So I could have been like, screw you, I'm a Jew type of thing. And then October 7th happened, and I quickly found out which kind of category I fell into, as you can see, and Julia knows because she sent me this huge Star of David.
It's evil eye inside,
and
right?
the evil eye. So I'm like,
and did you make it?
Protected.
I did not make that one, but I saw it and I thought of her and I thought she would definitely, and I have one too. And it's interesting you say that because every Jewish author we've interviewed, we ask them the same question and it just comes up, even if we don't ask, about the characters being Jewish. And it's so interesting because we all as humans want to relate. Everything we read, everything we watch on TV, you know how nowadays they say representation matters unless you're a Jew. It's like representation matters, but let's put a non-Jewish main character in Mrs. Maisel. Oh, I grew up with a lot of Jews, so I understand. And listen, Rachel Brosnahan, I can never pronounce her name. She was great in the show, and I think she's fantastic as a comedic actress, everything. But just because you grew up around Jewish people does not make you someone that you should be a front runner on a show. You know what I mean? Like, we talk about representation, but white people, do they have to be Jewish? Was she really the best? Could they not have found a great comedic actress that was also Jewish. You
Yeah.
know, and to me, that bothers me. My kids and a lot of people I talk to, I say, no, if she was the best, doesn't matter. Okay, but would you say the same to an Asian actor or a Black actor? You know, there was a huge uproar with the movie called Aloha. Remember, it was Emma Stone. She's a white girl.
Oh my God. She's not
Okay.
she doesn't even look remotely
Doesn't even,
No.
the character in the book originally in the story, because apparently it's based on a somewhat true story, was Hawaiian, and she was trying to save their land. You know, they were going to build something and use it for nuclear power, something. And Bradley Cooper is in it. He's, you know, the main character. You have to watch the movie. It's very cute, but she got a lot of hate. The whole movie was banned, and not banned, but they were like protesting it and everything. Okay, so we could do that, but when it's Jewish people, we're the only ones that are like, could they have maybe used, you know, we're very quiet about it, right? But we want to relate to the characters. So
We
I don't know
do.
where that
We
was my
do, and
point.
I think you bring up a good point, because I feel a and Heidi, I'm sure you do as well. I feel a responsibility to be authentic in the portrayal of the characters. So, for example, when Harlequin asked me to contribute to their Fortunes of Texas series, which is a multi-author series that's been going on forever. It's like Dallas. It's like a soap opera. And the first book that they had me write, and they provide me with the synopsis, they provide me with the characters, they give me a lot of the information.
Are
So
you
I'm just fleshing it
serious?
out. Yes, it is. It's a very, so it's, and they did a great job, but they set the story. The first one that I wrote was set in this little teeny tiny town in Texas that was like 4 hours from the closest city, and it didn't have anything there. And I was like, okay, you've given me a Jewish character to make the heroine, and that's terrific. I'm like, but why is she here? Like,
It probably
you know,
wouldn't
like,
be, right?
we congregate with people, you know, we need
Yes.
bagels. We don't, we're not a rancher, we're not
A
ranchers. We don't,
community.
you know, we
Yeah.
maybe eat ranch dressing, but that's as close to ranch as we get. So like, I
Yeah.
need to make this authentic. I need there to be a reason why she came here, why she is interacting and considering even staying in this town, because otherwise it's just like tokenism. And I
So did
didn't
you find
want
that
that.
reason? I'm so
I
curious.
created a bit of a backstory, and I said that there was like a Jewish summer camp in the area. And so she came, she entered the story because she was taking guardianship of her niece. So I said, okay, so the parents came there because they had gone to summer camp and they liked, you know, they liked being there. So I created enough of a backstory that I could add a little bit of, you know, authenticity to the story. And my editor was sweet because she's Jewish also, and she's like, okay, don't worry, next time we're putting you into a bigger town and it will be fine. I said, thank you.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we do have that responsibility, and I'm not sure that people always look upon it the same way for Jews as they do for other
No.
people. But
Yeah. And I think that's the issue, is that I always tell people, unless you're Jewish, you won't understand. Just
Yes.
like Black people always said to us during all the riots and, you know, all the upheaval we had with cops and everything. And it's like, unless you're Black, you won't understand. So don't talk about it. Okay, you know, but we're the ones that are always there for everyone else. Can you just for a moment just think about what we need, you know? And it's really interesting because we've always been the ones to support others, to be there for others. But then when we start to say, hey, we'd like a little bit more characters and books and people to write, and you know, even Jewish authors after October 7th, like, you know, Heidi and I talked about this many times, I stopped reading everything but Jewish authors, and I loved supporting my other minorities. I love supporting Black voices, whatever, immigrants, and I read every book. I mean, this is just part of my collection. Every book on here is either, you know, some sort of minority and immigrant women, and every time I would read the book, and I'm thinking, I can't relate to any of this. It's a great book, a great author, great writing, great story, but I would love to see more of my own people, you know? And for me also, my last point is that I would always come upon paragraph, a page, a quote, something derogatory about Jews. And that was, and then
Really?
I'd close the book and I'd be done. There
Oh
would
my
be
gosh,
always something,
especially the classics. Oh,
Yes,
especially the
definitely the
classics.
classics. Yes, definitely
But
the
even
classics.
in any story, there's always that character. Oh, he's a Jew. I'd be like, just like, oh, let's just wave him off. Like, oh, there's a great guy I met in school. There's a few books that I highlighted in the book. And that was, I put the book down. And these are some of the most amazing authors, applauded authors right now on the market. And it was like, oh, I really like this guy in my class, but, he's a Jew. So there's no future there. And I'd be like, "Wait, what?"
that's
Or
so
it
That's
was
so
such a little
interesting.
minor little stereotype. Well, his
That's so
family.
interesting because I haven't seen that in the books that I've read, but and I do try to read a nice broad spectrum of different authors of color and a variety of different books, and I have not noticed that, but that's a shame. I'm sorry.
I totally noticed it, and I was so surprised with one contemporary romance author who lives in the UK. And I think the book I read, she wrote in the 90s.
Mhm.
And it wasn't Helen Fielding. I love Helen Fielding. It was somebody like less known, but I still was a fan of hers. And in one of her books, there was a character who was a real estate agent, and she never uses the word Jewish, but it was obviously, the last name was like Goldberg or something. And she says he has a big nose and that he tries to cheat everybody. And I was so taken aback and so disgusted and so
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
There's
yeah.
a lot of that, unfortunately, but I think that's why we need more stories that are not so stereotypical, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, and in the TV show with Adam Brody, Nobody Wants This, I
Yes.
think so. I have an author friend who's part of the Facebook, Jewish Women Read Romance Books, Felicia Grossman. And she made a really good point, which is how in media, Jewish women are always portrayed in a very stereotypical way, which is, I'm trying to just, how would you just,
Well,
it's not at all in a positive light. It's
right.
very
It's negative.
judgy,
Yes.
controlling, kind of pessimistic, snobby. And
Yeah.
so, that also is really a problem.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think the more we are out there, the more books we write, the more TV shows we, create. I think the more chance we have of making it of showing a variety of different types of characters, making them less stereotypical, showing a more three-dimensional type of character, and being able to show other people that, oh, you can relate to this too. Like we're not any more different than anyone else is. We have our own identity, but we're just like you, and this is why.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's really what racism is about
Mhm.
looking at one group of people, no matter based on their religion or the skin type, just kind of painting everybody in the same category. And I mean, I am so shocked when people, because I'm Orthodox Jewish, and when
Mhm.
people say, "Oh my gosh, I know this Orthodox Jewish person who like abused his wife," or they have kids who are like bullies, and they're like, don't you think that they would behave better knowing everything that they're taught? And I'm like, guess what? We're all humans. We
Correct.
all are the same. And
Yeah.
shit happens. We have family issues, and
Mhm.
Julia often
Yeah.
talks about that with matchmaking.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. We keep talking about that every time we have a guest. It's
I
because
know.
so many people run into this, and it was such an eye-opening thing for me when my business started growing, with matchmaking over the years, and these non-Jewish women would come to me and say, we want to date Jewish men. And I'd be like, okay. And they'd come to me because they knew I'm very vocal about being Jewish. It's all over my website and social
Right.
media. And I would always be like, well, okay, tell me why. Let's talk about this. And they would say, well, they are great husbands. They make great husbands. I'm like, yeah, all of them. Like all of them, all 0.2% of the population. Okay, keep going. And I'll just let them rattle on the list. They make great money, they have family money, they're great providers. A lot of it was about money, but a lot of it was about, well, Jewish people stick together and they're great family people. And it just went on and on and on. And I'm thinking, we have alcoholics in the family, we have abusers, we have cheaters, we have this, we have that. I mean, come on, really? And yeah, people always say to me, well, stereotypes are there for a reason. They come from somewhere. Do they, though? Because they just kind of started back in the day because the Jewish community is close. So does that mean that all men are great at being husbands and fathers and providing? I know plenty of poor Jews.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some truth to that because of
Right.
the culture. And I think from what people see from generation to generation. And I think Judaism is very much a religion and a lifestyle where there's a lot of family time because we have a lot of holidays and then I don't know. So maybe there is something to that.
And I think the stereotypes work both ways. I think they can be negative stereotypes, but they can also be positive stereotypes. And I think that I think it goes both ways.
Of course.
Yeah, it's important. And that's kind of going back to what I originally said, is that humans are humans.
Yes.
And so like when my agents first read my book, Unorthodox Love, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the first time we've ever seen Orthodox Jews look normal. And it never occurred to me that people didn't think of us as normal.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you guys laugh and you joke. And I'm like,
yeah.
But I think a lot, and I think some of that comes from a lack of knowledge, which, I mean, all stereotypes come from a lack of knowledge, but because I think in somebody's head, if they hear Orthodox, they are thinking more ultra Orthodox in their image versus modern Orthodox.
Right.
So I think they're trying to say, okay, what do I know? And, I know this. Oh, but this book is different. So I think a lot of it is just an education. And
that's so true.
I think there's the weight of on us that we have to educate readers and educate people. And sometimes that can be a good thing. And sometimes that can be a very heavy load to bear. But I think if we want anything to change, I think if we want things to become more positive and we want to fight against a lot of the hate and anti-Semitism, I do think we have a responsibility to educate and just to put things out there and accept the fact that, okay, right now I need to take responsibility for educating other people. And I don't necessarily want to be the educator. But luckily there's a lot of people around us. So, we can all bear it together, which is also why, some of these spaces like the, Jewish Women Talk About Romance, it's so nice to have a space like that where we can just kind of like breathe.
Yes. And not have to worry. It's really interesting because I once got onto an elevator. We were moving my son into college at the university. And I don't know how, but in that very brief elevator ride, we found out that the other boy was Jewish. And I don't know why, but it's just we don't have to watch what we say as much. We can just relax. We feel like we're constantly representing an entire people with everything that comes out of our mouths.
Yes.
Right.
I think
that's the thing, is that you feel so, at least for me, reading books from non-Jewish authors back in the day, I was always on edge reading and waiting for that stereotype come out, and whether it was just about my people or someone else, there was always something I was waiting. I remember telling my husband this, and he was like, that's a weird way to read books. Like, you're waiting for the shoe to drop, the other shoe to drop, whatever the saying is, and I'm like, yes, I come from a culture and a country where it was very common to hear Jewish slurs all the time. And we just grew up with it, and it was the norm. And he was like, well, yeah, okay, it's an anti-Semite, keep moving. It was just no big deal because this is what all of USSR was, Not only could you not show being Jewish, but you couldn't talk about it. It was too dangerous. But at the same time, it was all around us, and we heard these jokes all the time. I remember, and this is really a sad story, but kind of funny in a way. And I was thinking, God, if I wrote novels, I would totally include this, but I don't know how to write a novel. So we went back to Latvia back in 2018 when, with my dad, with my mom, and he really wanted to meet his old childhood friend, Victor.
Aw.
Victor's never going to listen to the podcast, so it's okay that I use his, well, we'll say it's not his real name. He doesn't even really speak English, so it's fine.
Perfect.
Perfect. But he talked about him for so long. This guy used to be in, I don't know if he was in KGB, but he's definitely something. So we're all excited to meet him, and we meet at our hotel lobby, and we're, eating and talking and everything. And he starts to make jokes. I don't know why, and he's talking all in Russian. So of course my husband is picking up like every third, fourth word. My kids maybe a little more, and he makes a joke, and it's a Jewish joke. It's making fun of a Jew. I can't even remember what it was, but it was some derogatory Jewish joke. And we all just, there was silence. We just I think we were so taken aback because I haven't been back in 30 some years, right? And things have changed. The collapse of Soviet Union, there's no communist. You don't expect that anymore from
Right.
that culture. And my dad, he's just sitting there. It's just like one of his best friends growing up. And he just kind of like chuckled and changed the topic. And I looked at him and I went, and I made an excuse to leave. And we said I had to go. And the kids, we all got up and they're like, Mom, why are we leaving? And I tell them why. And then later I was furious at my dad. I ran up to him. I was like, what the hell? And you didn't say anything? This is your friend. He's like, well, you know how these people are. You know how it is. He's harmless. He was used to this. This was the culture that we lived in, but I no longer take it because
Right.
And so, but I was so hurt that my dad did. And later he said, you're right, I should have said something.
Yeah. It's
But
like even Daniel, my husband, I'm trying to think, it was like 8 years ago. So very recently. And he was working at a company, and his boss, he was a funny guy, very social, whatever. But he would say things like, oh, I Jewed them down. And then he would turn to my husband and say, I don't mean you, of course, which was, and my husband, he had a really hard time growing up. He moved in a lot of states, and one of them was in the South, I think in Georgia, and he had a burning cross sent, on his, set on his lawn. And when he was in high school, he had pennies thrown at him. And when he went to the University of Wisconsin, he was in a fraternity house for engineers. But they were there were a lot of Jew jokes, like anti-Semitic Jew jokes. And they always said, we don't mean you, of course.
That's such bullshit.
And if you have to clarify that, then that should tell you it's a problem.
Yeah. Oh, that's awful. It's absolutely terrible. And unfortunately, as I've told my kids over the years, this is not going to end. This is the only way this would ever end is if we educated people. And how many people choose to do that? Like what you were saying, Jennifer, nobody wants to be that person to educate someone and to explain to them why that is very derogatory. You think it's a joke, but then then you turn and say, but not you, then you did something wrong.
Right.
And so nobody wants to do that, unfortunately, but we should.
You know what I think is so unique to anti-Semitism? Not only is it like one of those shapeshifters where it can look different for every generation, like right now it's, Israel versus before it was the blood libels and all of that. But I think Jewish people have been successful, and that makes people think we can pick on them because they're not, the underdog. And I think people don't realize that throughout history, we have been successful, and that never saved us. We have been politicians and doctors and professors. And, you look at Nazi Germany, we had people very high up in the political government. Nothing saves us. And I think non-Jews don't get that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this is why we need more books written by Jewish authors
Mhm.
that show that we are normal human beings. And
Right.
I hate to say the word normal, like we always say normal, right? What is normal?
Right.
But I've met more stereotypes in non-Jewish people that people call Jewish stereotypes. Do you know what I mean? Some of
Mhm.
the, talk money and family and everything. And it really is about education. It's really is about people reading. And even after I wrote my book, which was with a very small publisher, that was a nightmare, but whatever. People actually would message me and say, wow, I had no idea about, first of all, it was like growing up in Soviet Russia, but what it was like for Jewish people.
Mhm.
And then other people would say, I had no idea that Jews did this or could do this or were like this. And I remember thinking, really? Like, do you really? But I guess if you go out of your way to message the author, right, you really do. This is really the truth and not just making stuff up.
Right.
It was
And I think it
fascinating.
strikes them enough, and
Yes,
it means enough to them that they want to contact you, that they want to, I think it's become important enough to them that they want to, come back to you and say, oh, wow, this really informed me in a way that I hadn't been before,
right. It
Yeah.
resonated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jennifer, I
Mhm.
have to ask you this question only because I'm currently battling this so much. And
Okay.
I know you have two girls
Oh,
and
yes.
I've got three kids, although only two of them are living at home right now. But I find it such a struggle. I'm given very short deadlines to deliver a lot of material and
Mhm.
make a lot of editorial changes. And, I just it's hard for me to balance family life and my writing
Mhm.
goals and deadlines. How do you do it?
Mm.
I don't know because
Well, that's not a good
Just do
answer.
it.
no, okay. Let me see if I can come up with a better one. Um,
Okay.
it is very hard. My 2 girls, luckily, are out of the house, so it really is right now just my husband and me. So when I have, time that they're not home, like when they come home for holidays or they come home for we're coming home for a weekend or we're coming home to visit or my oldest was just home for a conference. It's a lot harder when they are around. So
Mhm.
luckily now they're old enough that they're out of the house that I do have the time to myself. So when they were home, I tried to stick to their schedule so that when they were at school, I would do my writing, or in the evenings, I would write, or if they were working on their homework, I would do my, work. It was very hard to balance. Editors do give you very little time to get things done. Even now, even though they're not home, I'll get a message from my editor saying, "Hi, I've got your edits. Can you get these back to me in a week?"
Exactly.
And I'm like, "Oh my, okay."
Yeah.
They have the
You know,
easy job, right? Like they just read it
yeah.
and then they go, "This is what's wrong with it."
Right,
Fix it.
and fix
Yeah.
it. And I
Yeah.
mean, and I understand they have schedules that they have to keep to and whatever, and I do try to meet their deadlines as well, but it is definitely hard. And,
Mm.
even without my kids being home, I'll say to my husband, "Look, this is due. I've got a week
Right.
to fix this, and you're on your own for dinner,"
Yeah.
or like whatever, you're
Exactly.
gonna have to
Go find
let me do
something.
my thing
Yeah.
because I have to get this in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
I
always
don't
say
have like
that.
I don't have a magic wand that I can just, wave and say, okay, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just, um, Nora Roberts had this great saying that I just heard, that she said, there's really you're not balancing, you're juggling. And you're juggling a whole bunch of different balls, but not all of the balls are the same. You're juggling glass balls and you're juggling plastic balls.
Oh,
And the
interesting.
glass balls are the ones that are the most important because if they fall, they break.
Mm.
The plastic ones, if they fall, it's not the end of the world. So, when her kids were little and she was trying to juggle everything,
Yeah.
she would, prioritize what was glass and what was plastic. And she said, I
Mm.
wasn't perfect and I would definitely drop things, but the key was to not drop the glass ones. And I loved the way she described that. I'm doing a bad job of explaining it.
No, that makes so much sense.
I loved the way she explained that, because I hadn't heard that before. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So we're just going to juggle, and we're going to decide between glass and plastic, and what's important and what can go by the wayside.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I always say that I am so much more productive, obviously, when I'm just left alone. And although, like with the same with you, Jennifer, my kids no longer live at home, but when they do come to visit, it's definitely it's because you want to be there for them, and you want to spend time with them, and you want to make their, trip comfortable and everything, and you go out of your way. But even with having a partner, I always feel that guilt, like, oh, it's evening, someone wants to talk to me because of my business. And even though I'm not writing a book, running a business, all the things that we do, it's especially with the podcast, everything and scheduling and editing, it's a lot of work. And then on top of it, so my husband's like, well, why don't I edit the podcast for you? So then we're together, right? But it is on, but it's not, because then he just wants to get it done really quickly. So he's not listening.
That's like my husband.
So then, but then he's like, well, I want to listen to it on my walk, on my lunch hour when I'm at work. So I don't want to listen to the whole thing now. So I always give him notes, cut this, do this, do this. And then he puts it all together, and then he'll listen to it. And but I'm like, wait, but you're the editor. So I was getting messages from listeners going, did you know that you left fuck shit in I was like, oh my God, what? They're like,
I love that. I say leave it.
Well, I do have a whole bloopers thing going, which we're going to put it all together. I'm just waiting for the right time. But, when I do the intro before or after I record to kind of summarize what we did, and I started to record it and say, on today's episode, we had Jennifer Wilck, and we talked, God damn it, fuck, got to start over. Well, he's not listening that well. He's just kind of going by my notes, and a good editor, would listen to the whole thing. So I was like, oh my God, I was mortified. So, but of course you don't want to admit that, yes, you messed up. So I'm like, no, that was supposed to be, it's a comedic episode. I'm like, yeah, you're fired. Like,
now I know
what you pay for, right?
You get what you pay for. Yeah, I guess that's what, sex gets you, them.
You got to step it up, Julia.
No, I really do, clearly. But it's very hard being productive as a woman, because we always multitask. And I always say that women are better at multitasking, and we are up to a certain age. Now that I'm getting older, and I'm, next year I'll be 50.
Wow, you do not look 50.
Oh, thank you.
You don't.
I would say 30. I believe 30.
Oh, stop it. I appreciate it. But I am starting, my brain is starting to kind of slow down and
decompose. Yeah, I hear that.
Decompose. I cannot multitask. I'm having a really hard time remembering things. And if it's not on my calendar, forget it. But also when I'm meeting with clients, and I know I had just read their information, their intake form, and I haven't written a blog post for my business in forever, just because I cannot multitask. But I used to be great at it. What is happening?
When my kids do come home, I find myself like, how did I manage to do all of these things while they were home? I'm always like stopping and like, okay, what are they doing? What can I do? Do I have enough time to get this done? Maybe I should just sit here and like wait for I'm out of practice, and trying to get that same level of activity between them and me is really hard to do.
Yeah. I don't know how older moms do it either. I know people are waiting much later now to have children.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, 23, 24 years old on the jungle gym with my son. I was out there chasing him, and all the moms I remember seeing, I was sitting on the bench. And I remember thinking, why don't you out there with your kid, you know? And I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, I can imagine having a kid in your 40s. You're like, you go ahead, you know, I'll see you when you come back.
But I gotta say, my father-in-law, he's like 74 and he has way more energy than either my husband or I do. Like he's out there constantly playing like catch with my son, and I don't know how he does it, but my husband said, well, it's different because when he was a dad, he was always busy and working, and it's kind of a different. So maybe, God willing, when we all have grandchildren, we'll have like that second wind or something.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I really hope so, because I'm not feeling it right now.
I know. I don't know that I'll be able to pick them up. I picked up a neighbor's kid like a couple years ago, and I hurt my back. I literally, you know, that moment where you're like, oh my, this is not going away. And that was the first time. I think I was like 45 at the time or something. And I'm like, oh crap, this is what they talk about. And I could not get back up.
Oh, wow.
I'm holding this thing going, hello, help. It's either the kid goes down or I go down. And I'm thinking,
what happened? Is the kid still alive?
The kid's okay. She's, you know, that was a couple years ago, but I was like, oh my God, this is really a thing. You turn wrong, you brush your teeth wrong, you know, you bend over the sink wrong. And I'm thinking, when my kids finally have their own children, am I even going to be able to pick up that kid? So I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to stay, you know, young, but
I'm so curious. Do you guys have this problem where you bend down and you go, ugh, like you make this, ugh?
Yes. Yeah. I can't not do it.
I used to have that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm like, where does this come
I don't know what happened. I don't know why it started.
Yeah.
And I'm not even aware of doing it, but it happens. Yeah. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. And I'm so much slower. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stand up fast now, like the way I did when I was young. And then I'm like,
yep.
And then you get like vertigo. Yeah. Well, this is so funny. We're talking about this because literally last night when we landed, I was telling my husband, man, I think this whole vertigo thing is coming back because it was getting better. But we've been on, you know, up and down on planes, up and down in helicopters. And I remembered last time he took us flying in the helicopter, this was like a few months ago, I got really bad vertigo and I couldn't get rid of it. You know, I was constantly spinning. I couldn't move. And I'm like, Jesus, why is this happening?
wow.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm never getting back in a helicopter. He's like, yes, you will. You'll get better. You'll go back out there. I'm like, no, I think this is it. Like, I did it twice. I'm good. But
wow. Do you ever wonder if you need to get the earwax cleaned out?
Yeah, I went in. The guy sent me home. He's like, stop coming back here. You're wasting my time. There's nothing wrong with you. You know,
I
huge doctor, so he understands, right? Like when we come in, he was gonna sit there and he's like, okay, what
is it now?
what is it this time? He's an ENT and I love him. You know, if anyone's in Orange County, go see Dr. Avram Kaufman. He is the best.
Sounds very Jewish. Yep.
He's a beautiful man. He's married, you know, but I did try to set him up before he met his wife, actually. So I've known him forever, but he was like, do you want me to order an MRI just so you feel better? I'm like, you know what? Yes, I do. He's like, do you want the CAT scan too? Yes, I do.
So Jewish. Oh my gosh. Oh my
Talk about stereotypes. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about this.
No, but I'm the same way. I went to a neurologist recently and I'm like, hi, just so you know, I am 42 years old and I have early onset dementia and I'm going to need you to run it all. I might have Parkinson's. I think I've got like a lot going on. I've got undiagnosed ADD. And he's just going,
okay, lady.
And he's like, okay. And then he did like the Parkinson test and he's like, no, you're good. And then he's like, I can order you an MRI, you know, so they can look at your brain if that would make you feel better. And I'm like, yes, please.
I know.
I'm fine.
The issue is we're in America and everything costs a lot, especially if you have a PPO. So my husband the other day decided, he's like, I'm switching you to an HMO. So everything is covered because this is getting ridiculous. It's like, we cannot afford your, crazy.
Right.
But it's hard because I always think that in my past life, I must have been a doctor or something in the medicinal field, because whenever there's something going on with the kids, right? We always know what it is.
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't even need to go to the doctor. Am I
Right.
right?
And it's something super severe usually.
Of course.
Right. And then, they go to the doctor and they tell him exactly what you just said. And I'm like, see, I told you I was a doctor in my previous life. And they're like, okay, crazy.
Every day, my husband has a different type of cancer. He's like, oh my God, I have some things in my throat. It's like esophageal cancer. And I'm like, oh no, poor you. And then another day, it's like, I have a new mole. I have skin cancer. And I'm like, oh. But like, if I have something I'm worried about, I'm like, this is actually real now.
Oh yeah, it's a lot more serious than whoever is going through whatever they're going through.
Of course,
Right,
absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah. You have to watch. We just started watching this show on Netflix called 4 Seasons. Did you see it?
Oh, I just started it last night. I was laughing so hard.
Right? I mean, they might as well be Tina Fey and the husband. Oh my gosh, what's his name?
Steve
From SNL.
Carell, right?
No, Steve Carell is married to someone else. But her husband.
Right. I don't know who Tina Fey's husband is.
Okay, we have to look it up now. But they might as well be a Jewish couple, because my upset stomach, my sore, my this. Like, no wonder you're not having sex. Stop talking about your health issues.
I so identified when Steve Carell was like, all she does is want to sleep. Oh my gosh, I need to watch this with Daniel. Jennifer, have you watched it?
I have not seen it, but now I have to watch it.
Yes.
I think it's called 4 Seasons or The 4 Seasons.
Okay, I will look it up. My husband and I keep a list of shows we want to watch, so I will put that on the list.
It's so funny, and it's for like menopausal couples, like your kids are out. And
okay,
so good. There's another one on Apple with John Hamm, which John Hamm. I mean, come on.
He's sexy. You can't deny it. Yeah.
And there was a rumor going around that he's Jewish at one point. Do you remember this? This was like years ago, that like the grandma in his family or someone, and he was like, look, nothing against Jewish people. I love my Jewish friends. I'm not lucky enough to be Jewish. Or he said something very cute. I was like, it's okay. In my mind, you're Jewish. So it's fine. You don't need to explain.
Right.
But he was like, everybody's asking me if I'm Jewish, and I'm so funny. I'm not.
That's
but
hilarious.
There was a picture years ago with him wearing tight gray sweatpants. Do you remember? Could we talk about this?
Yes.
Do you remember? And like his penis was running down his leg. It was like a snake, a very nice thick snake.
I gotta look this up. We have to attach it in the show notes.
I'm going to look up John Hamm gray penis or gray pants penis or something. It was wow. Like, I zoomed in on that thing till it was like so blurry and pixelated. I'm not typically into white men. I mean, I know I'm married to one, but
what are you into, Julia? We've never discussed this.
Black men. That's my thing, and
I love that.
Yeah, my husband loves Asian women, so it's all good.
It works.
It works. But anyway, so
like a United Nations. If you had an orgy, it'd be like a United Nations conference in your bedroom.
I know we need a little diversity in our lives. But my point was, there's a show called Your Friends and Neighbors on Apple. Have you heard of it? On Apple TV?
No,
I don't have that.
You have to go subscribe now. It's not about. I mean, the sex is amazing in the show too. There's a lot of sex going on, but he's like out of work. He loses his job. He was a stock trader, investment, something funds. I don't even understand. And then he basically starts stealing from his friends. It's really good. It's funny and it's very captivating show. And it's interesting to see him in a character that's so different from his typical, So that's another great show for people to watch.
And Good Girls.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that was a
Yeah.
while ago.
It was
Gosh,
a while ago, but
you're
like the guy
behind.
in it was so hot, and he's not like really the type I would have thought would be hot. But
Oh,
No,
something
but it
about
worked. It worked.
it
yeah.
worked. And my daughter first told me about it, and like she showed me a preview, and I'm like, I don't get it, no offense. And then I started watching it, and I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I may be thinking of a different show. Good Girls on, is it on Netflix?
Yeah,
Oh no,
and
yeah, it
it's
is the show I'm
funny.
talking about. Yes, that was a while ago. It
It
ended.
was a while
Yes.
ago.
I see you're behind a little because you have a lot going on.
I'm a lot. I am so behind on so many things. Somebody said to me recently, "Do you live under a rock?"
You're like, yes.
I can
And
only
I'm like,
dream of that.
basically, yeah.
Funny. Oh my gosh. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. This was so much fun. I
you.
love talking with you guys.
Sure, we'll have to
Yes.
do this
And do
again.
you want to tell us
Sure.
before we go about your upcoming books or your new releases?
My latest book coming from Harlequin is in January or February. It's called Falling for the Rabbi. It is the first in a matchmaking series, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm so thrilled that Harlequin is actually like putting Rabbi on the front cover, and the marketing department is really excited about it, and it's going to be awesome. So yeah.
That's so nice. I
That's
love
really
it.
was that the book that I talked to
That
you
is the
about?
book that you and I talked about. Yes.
Okay, very
So,
cool. I'm
yeah.
so glad I was able to give you a little
You were so
snippet.
helpful. I have like,
Snippet.
it's so funny because when I write, when I do it like a first draft, I leave notes for myself, like in all caps throughout, just to remind myself, oh, go check this or do that. And I have like all these things. Check notes from Julia. Check notes from Julia.
Oh,
Check notes from Julia. Because you were awesome. Thank you.
what
Oh,
did you do? I didn't know
See,
this. How did you
I
help?
needed the perspective of a matchmaker. So I
Oh,
needed to
right.
know like exactly how they work. And
Yeah.
she was fantastic, and she helped me for, the book for this book, but it's a series. And so, like I took some of your notes. I'm like, oh, I can use that in book 2, and I can do this for book 3. This is awesome. Thank you.
oh,
She
I
did
love
the same
that.
for me, by the way, and I'm
Yes,
gonna
isn't that
thank
helpful?
her in the acknowledgments because
Yes.
she
Thank
was so
you.
helpful because I'm
Yeah.
also writing a matchmaker as
So
the
many
main
people
character.
are right now because it's such the fun
It's
thing to do.
it's a big thing right now. It's
Yeah.
such a topic with all the shows, and
Yep.
Yes.
I've been trying to submit to agents for writing my Confessions of a Matchmaker book.
Mhm.
That's it's not fiction, it's a real behind the scenes about the matchmaking industry. And today just came to me, and I'm wondering if it's like the divine talking to me that I should just write a fiction book with a writer, an author about the matchmaking industry. That way, I probably won't get sued by talking about what goes on behind the scenes. So, yeah, if you know anyone that might be interested, I'm really thinking that that's what it should be, because I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about the industry
Mhm.
because it's kind of like a cult. I mean, it really is
Really?
like, oh yeah, there's so much hush hush stuff, and we don't talk about what happens in the matchmaking industry. It's kind of
That's
like
too
that whole,
funny.
yeah. What state? What is it? The Vegas thing? What happens in Vegas stays in
Oh,
Vegas?
stays
Stays in
in
Yeah,
Vegas,
Vegas?
right?
Like, how scandalous can it get, though?
really scandalous. I mean,
Ooh.
if you read just our group chats and the things that goes on in there, I mean, not only about what we talk about with the clients, the things that are happening with client, the crazy stories. I mean, 80-year-old men wanting to date women of childbearing age
Sure.
because they have money. So therefore, of course, right?
Right.
But even what happens between us matchmakers, there's so much competition and
Mm.
ego and just the cat fights, and which I
Mhm.
hate to say that it's such a derogatory thing, but when you get hundreds of women together, right?
Yeah.
And from all backgrounds. They're from all backgrounds. I mean, there's a specific group for just Jewish matchmakers who only work with Jewish clients. There's a group for just people that work with people of color. There's European. It's crazy.
Yeah, Asians, Indians. I did some research for my book, and I was fascinated to know it's not just Jews who use matchmakers. There's like
Right.
a rich history of many cultures.
Yeah.
So
Well, the whole arranged marriage thing was kind of originated in India and Eastern Europe,
Mhm.
Poland,
mhm.
and then it kind of evolved into not so much of a forced marriage, arranged marriage, but you have options.
Right.
You can say no. Well, in some places you can still, but which is a whole other thing. So, but anyway, so thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
We always love talking to you. So come back again.
Me
We'll talk
too.
about more. There's so
Love
much more to
to.
talk about.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was amazing to have you. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share. And even if you didn't enjoy it, share anyway. Thank you for listening and come back to Someone Had to Say It.